So guys, I think first of all, I'll let Veli introduce himself initially because he hasn't had a chance to speak, and just say briefly kind of who you are and give a very short of insight into your experience in the Chinese market so far. Is that okay?
Yep.
Shoot.
Oh, hello everyone. So my name is Veli-Pekka Piirainen. I'm coming from Finland. I have a small indie game development company called Critical Force Entertainment, and we make first-person shooter games. And we have now 2 titles: Critical Mission SWAT and Company of Tanks. And do I tell my China experience right now or later?
Sorry, I was missing you. I was getting involved.
Yeah.
That's better. I feel on my own. Go for it.
Okay, so about China experience. So we have the first-person shooter game Critical Mission SWAT, and we start to get queries from China in the beginning of last year. For example, Tencent, 6 Waves, and so on. And we started to negotiate with Tencent, but it was not easy to negotiate. We are a small company, Tencent is a huge company. So we didn't feel very confident with them. So we have small negotiation going on, and soon the guy disappeared who we were negotiating with. So we didn't know what happened. So we didn't want to continue with bigger companies because it's not easy. So last summer then we get a request from a small company called YouGame Home, located in Xiamen. And there are only 50 people, very small, but I felt very confident with them because of the CEO. He was very friendly, speaking very good English, communication was very easy, and also one thing that he had, the part owner of the company has a very good relations with operators because of the Nokia background, and one thing was also that they said directly that they make prepayment. So they gave us $50,000 to go further with the game's localization work and so on. So first we localized the game in Chinese language, so they help us. We just send texts what need to localize. And after that, server issue, because our game is multiplayer game, so we need servers in China because the bandwidth to the outside China is very bad. So we are using Exit Games Photon server, so we need to set up a server in China, and they're helping us. So we are managing the servers there, and they just gave us the server where to set up. And next thing was making in-app purchases, so special in China. So they wanted golden AK assault rifle and some fancy laser guns, so we implemented them in our game. And so pay to win is not so big problem in China as in Western world. So Chinese players are willing to pay if they get better guns. And we need to implement also daily events that they get some kind of, when they, for example, make enough kills, they get some kind of gun for free for a few days or something like that. The biggest problem was the payment systems, because there's so many channels, so you need to implement payment system for every channel. So we made first with Alipay. And then 360 store. So that's the first channel we are putting our game. So we are now testing the game in 360 store. And one thing what was different, and didn't even know about that, is copyright of the game. So the Chinese partner wanted that we copyright the game in China, and that was one issue that seems to be quite complicated with all this documentation and stuff like that. So it's still in progress. And then I don't know yet is it necessary or not. They said that for web games you have to have license in China, but for mobile games not yet. So it's better to copyright. So we are doing that. And actually, the first version is going to be launched end of this week. And one fancy thing I want to tell of the Chinese partner, that they are very willing to support us. For example, when I said that our main programmer is very pissed off with the payment system and you are changing the specs all the time and there are coming new plugins that are changed. And the CEO said, okay, send a message to the main programmer that please send your bank account, we send you $1,000 bonus if you can make this this week. And guy went very happy about that, and also they promised that we will sponsor you a trip to China next summer if we are making so and so much revenue. So motivation.
Okay.
So that's it.
Fantastic. No, that's good. Well, we've got a lot of hands-on experience. So, just going back to you, Ricardo. I'll come to you in a second. Don't worry, I'm not going to. But did you? You were saying obviously you had a tough experience. Did you work with a partner, or did you try and do it more hands-on? Like, were you trying to talk to the stores yourself?
We went to a lot of events, and we tried to. Received emails from Chinese partners. We went to the events and talked with partners on events. We always try not to go to the big ones, and probably was a mistake at the time. So we tried to find smaller companies that we believe we could trust.
Yeah.
And well, that was probably, now we know our mistake.
Yeah. Well, you have a good man here next to you, so that's good. I think the message that's coming across from a lot of experience generally is through the complications. You kind of need someone there. You need someone on the ground. You can just do the legwork and know how it all works.
I think that from a developer's perspective, all the SMS and integration of the building system could be really a nightmare if you don't have support from your partner, and if it's up to you to do it. It's really fragmented and it's difficult if you don't have a team.
Okay. Can I just ask a question? Because we're only about another 15 minutes and we can go have some lunch. But other guys here, how many developers or kind of publishers here are already publishing in China? Can we have a hands up? Come on. So a few. Okay, it's a few. And how many people are actively looking to publish in the Asian market and that aren't yet? Okay, there's your customer base. That's good. Okay, cool. So there's some people here. We've got, if you're interested, on our events.pgconnects.com, you can vote on the issues you think are most biggest obstruction to publishing in China. So that'd be quite interesting to see your views on that. But anyway, okay, that's good to know. So Robby, sorry, I'll give you your head because you've been very patient. So could you quickly introduce yourself and say your kind of angle on this market?
Sure, I'm a director of Animoca. We're a Hong Kong-based developer, and we develop, I guess we have a wide variety of apps, primarily casual and social apps. We distribute globally. Obviously, we're in Greater China, so we have a large presence in China. We work there through partners on the ground, because I think one of the things that's been emphasized across the various talks this morning is having the appropriate local partners is very important, and that comes even for us, being a Chinese company in part of China, because China is a very big place. So it's a bit like...
That's the takeaway. If anyone wants to write that down, China's a big place.
Well, because my analogy would be, it's like being a company here in England, and somebody from outside of Europe comes and says, well, I'll work with somebody in England for all of Europe, because they'll know everything about every country in Europe.
We are very knowledgeable
right?
in England, that's true.
China is the same, because as people will laugh on the panel maybe about people from Beijing and Shanghai and Chengdu and different places all have their own regional specialties.
No, it's true. I mean, Jeff was sort of pointing to that earlier when he did his presentation. He was talking to some of the differentials. That's definitely true.
For sure. And I think that one of the things, and I sympathize with a lot of the difficulties and trials and tribulations people have had, I think one of the key points is to remember that it's an incredibly competitive market. And so the most important thing to maintaining your positive relationship with your partner is to continue to be valuable to them. And I think that a lot of times people find that they're working with partners in China and maybe the partners don't call you back after a while or forget about you. Frankly, it's because they found somebody who's making more money for them, so you've fallen to the bottom of the totem pole relative to that discussion. And while that's a very tough reality. That's the nature of this extremely competitive market.
Okay, that's true.
But if you are continuing to provide value, you'll find you get a lot of attention from them.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. We've kind of covered a lot of specifics about kind of game design earlier from various people, which is great. So I don't want to kind of reiterate that too much about things that work and don't work. But one thing we didn't talk about too much, is the social side of things. And we're seeing in Korea and Japan, as we'll come on to this afternoon, the impact of Kakao and Line is huge. I mean, and from where we saw up there, I guess we did see initially in the App Annie figures that Tencent's WeChat seems to be similarly impactful. Is WeChat, is it kind of the hit maker, and is it going to continue to kind of dominate the Chinese charts, or is that not as significant as it is in Korea, do you think, Clay?
So clearly WeChat is a major player, and Tencent itself is a major player. I hope Steve is here. However, I don't think that's quite relevant to most of the developers, mainly because WeChat is not really an open platform. So it's as Steve also pointed out, it's a very, very curated process. It's more WeChat reach out to you if it's your AAA developer. And for indies, it's pretty much, I mean, you can try to reach out to WeChat, but the chance of your game be part of the 10 or 20 games that they're going to curate, they're going to bring to the store is very, very minimal. However, WeChat, we expect it will take about 30% of the overall revenue from the China market. So it is a huge player. It's just not very relevant to rest of the.
So it's not a thing. It's not a strategy. You either chosen. You can woo them, but that's pretty much
exactly.
It. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Cool. Okay. Well, I probably doesn't need too much more explanation than that. Hey, Jeff. Jeff, I thought you'd gone. He's back. Jeff Lyndon's here with us, ladies and gentlemen. Fantastic. I want to talk a little bit about stores. There's an incredible number of stores. I mean, it's quite interesting when we're putting up figures and looking at global figures. It's very hard to really understand who's winning in Android in China, just because there's so many different factors coming into it. Google Play is kind of irrelevant, but from what I understand, there's 400 plus stores is what people told me, the latest figures I got, but the accepted wisdom is that kind of only 4 or 5 of them really matter. And we have, for instance, 360, one of the very big stores. They're out here. You should probably talk to them if you're looking at the Chinese market. Is that fair, Jeff? Do you think it's fair that only 4 or 5 of the kind of stores matter, or is it actually bigger than that?
Well, I think it comes down to is how you're looking at what matters. Like, if you're looking purely from a revenue standpoint, then yes, like maybe 5 to, I would say there's more than 5. Like if you include the OEM stores and you include the operator store, then you're looking at like maybe 15 to 20 relationship you need to manage at least to capture like 80% of the revenue at least. Yeah. But if you're looking from a brand standpoint, or if you're looking at a piracy standpoint, like if you ignore the remaining 380 stores in China, what happens to those stores? Then they will start distributing a pirated version of your game.
So you don't give it to them, they take it anyway, basically.
So, it depends on how you look at it. If you look at it and say, like, you just want to maintain a small batch of relationship and maximize revenue and don't care about piracy and don't care about what happens next. Because, yes, some people only think piracy is just, I'm giving away games, but actually piracy in China is more than that. Like, for example, like there are games that is being pirated and integrated with like Trojan horse, with viruses, with ad SDKs that is airing like ads of medicine and unlicensed medicine and all that, right? And that eventually will bite back on you, because maybe one day the press catch on that this app is distributing like pornography.
Right. Okay.
Right. And yes, so it's not done by you, but like then your official sales get affected. Maybe the store start like, this is getting the government's eye, blah blah blah. So we need to stop your traffic for a while, etc. etc. So, I think it comes down to is your strategy. If you're looking just purely from a cash standpoint, then yes, maintaining 20 relationships is enough. But if you're looking at a longevity standpoint, then it's better that you cover as much as possible.
Is that kind of a view that's kind of backed up? Do people agree with that? Is that?
Yeah, well, one thing I'd like to add is, in addition to the 15-20 store that would give you good coverage, what you should pay attention to is the consolidation happening in the App Store space right now. For instance, the Baidu's acquisition of 91, and the Alibaba recently just launched their store initiative as well, right? So there will be a lot of shakeout in that space, something they should pay attention to. That actually give Western developer an opportunity to work with some of the stores directly. So I do encourage you to talk to 360 if you haven't done so. So they do scout games themselves, and then but for working with the stores, one caveat is typically that would be an exclusive deal. So 360 would like exclusivity. Of course, if you give that to them, and then you will lose maybe probably 80% of the market share. But they do have a very, very large market share in China.
Okay.
So, but to be able to get a full coverage, complete coverage of all the app stores, yeah, you have to work with a publisher like either iDreamsky or Chukong.
Or you do it yourself and build a team.
Yeah, you need to, but to maintain 400 relations, that seems like quite a lot of legwork.
Which we don't recommend, but if you really want to try, you can.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
And one key aspect of that is the operator stores. So the reason why the operator stores is important is not because of their volume they can drive, it is the billing. So you have to get the app operating store to be able to use the SMS billing.
You're right, okay. Interesting, okay.
I'd like to add,
did you back that up on the echo?
Yeah, if I could add one point on this one is, if you want to cover the 300, 400 different stores, you don't have to do it all by yourself. You can cover what we do is that we cover the 15 major accounts by ourselves directly, but then we actually work with a couple of sort of distributors who are distributing to the smaller stores. So, for example, China Mobile, they help us to distribute all the games to over 100 of their channel partners. So that's extremely valuable for us to get it just kind of one window that gets it to 100 stores. Although those are small stores and probably not bringing much revenue, but as Jeff said, it's really important to be there.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to open up for questions in a second. One last thing I wanted to ask before I do that is, obviously, sort of Jeff and Lei, you guys have had very big success with big Western brands coming to China. And I looked at the chart, and I think it's certainly looking at the other markets in Korea and Japan, it seems that it feels to me that there's still more respect, or there's more chance of a kind of Western title, if it's had some history doing well in China, than maybe it would naturally do in Japan or Korea. Is that true? Is it, if you've got a bit of a success in Europe or US, is that going to give you some extra kudos or anything? What's your feeling?
I think genres and genres are different.
Yeah.
So for certain genres like casual, and typically there will be a broad appeal for a IP that does well in the Western market. In the case of Temple Run or Where's My Water, that will potentially can do very well in the Eastern countries. But for a more core or hardcore, mid-core titles, I think one exception is Clash of Clans. It's doing really well across the board in both China, Asia, and other Asian countries and West. But the more core titles, for instance, Game of War, I mean, it's a similar strategy game. Is great. It has great complexity, great monetization. However, the simulation game in China or strategy game in China has a totally different play. And same thing for RPG, same thing for battle card games.
Okay. Do you have anybody think to add to that? I mean, Jeff, obviously you've...
Well, I think we're looking at a very different market. You know, if you look at Korea and Japan, you know, the market is very mature already.
Yeah.
You know, like anyone that wants to play games is playing games. Anyone that don't want to play games is playing games already. But in China, we still have lots of people that haven't played game before, or mobile game is their first game. So you know, casual games still have that niche because you know it's a great way to convert a non-playing user to a non-playing games user to an actual game playing user. I mean, a lot of user plays like Fruit Ninja or Temple Run or Fishing Joy or Where's My Water is their first game ever. You know, that's their Mario. That's their, and once you reach that kind of status, you know, like just like Mario, you get a 20-year-old IP. You know that people kind of reciprocate to, like as the first time. Right, but in Korea, you know, like it's not like Temple Run or Fruit Ninja is not popular. Like it's because the market is so mature to the point that you know the minute Fruit Ninja comes out, right, immediately within 2 weeks, everyone in Korea is playing it. And then what happens is these games have maybe a life cycle of 2 weeks, right, maximum. A casual game, 2 weeks, pretty good already. And then what happens is the whole market gets fed up with your game already in 2 weeks. Right, but in China, because of there's still a huge growth of new users. So yes, like this user get fed up with your game for 2 weeks, but then you have another 500,000 new player every single day to support that kind of growth for casual games and to support this kind of innovative game. So I think it's still a very a healthy ground for casual games in China right now. And especially, you know, if you look at casual games, you know, casual games is all about innovations. It's not about like how you really do your monetization and all the philosophy behind it. So, you know, for Western developer, it actually have a niche because Western developer tends to be more innovative in in game development than Chinese developers.
Okay.
Or Asian
All right.
developers per se.
I think that's. I'm gonna open this up for. I've got a couple more, but I'm gonna open this up if. This is a great opportunity if you are considering going to the Asian market. You've got a lot of experts here, people, and also people that have tried and also succeeded. So, do we have any questions for our panel? Come on, it's before lunch. Last burst of energy before you're refilled with sandwiches.
Here.
Oh, we have one. Sorry, it's a long, thin room, isn't it?
Hi. So in terms, speaking of net revenue for freemium games, I wonder what is the relative size of operator stores with courier billing versus the 360-like stores in China. I mean, is it better to go both on operator stores and standard Android stores?
You have to do both. It's a must. Yeah. Because if you don't get on operator store, you don't get SMS billing. And if you don't have SMS billing going to the 360 store or the other store, then how are you going to charge your users?
Okay, so it's a mix. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that probably also based on what genre your game is. So if it's a hardcore, mid-core, and your revenue breakdown between using SMS billing versus using, say, Alipay is probably 50-50, or maybe even higher on Alipay, because Alipay give you a higher cap. But if it's a casual game, it will be like 80% on carrier billing.
Okay, cool. Have we got any more questions? Oh, there's one more. That's good.
Hi. One question. As a Western developer trying to publish in China, how big of an impact on success is whether you give access to the source code to the local partner?
Depends on how reliable your local partner is.
I think it's the best way to do it, especially to this audience today, because it's most indie developers where you have limited development resource. And like I would just explain to you, like just on the surface, how much work you need to do. First, you need to integrate with at least 20 SDK. Second, you need to be at least compatible with 100 different Android devices that I give you, right? Just this two work for an indie developer is crazy. It easily would chew up like 2 to 3 guys for a whole year, right? And for indie developer, that's tough. That's really tough work, and I can understand that. So you know, giving out source code is the biggest risk here is, are you giving it to someone that you can trust? You know, other than that, it's all upside. Like you have someone that can help you monetize. You can have someone to help you do reiterations on a weekly basis. Like for example, like Subway Surfer. You know, one of the reasons why it's so successful is it does like a monthly update. Another very successful game, Cookie Run in Korea, they do bi-weekly updates. You know, that is tailored to the market events, to whatever situation that is happening to the market. Like, and for Western developer to catch on to that kind of rapid development pace, especially if you're an indie developer and China market is still not your biggest market to focus on, it becomes a problem for you.
Cool. Okay. Any final question from the floor? Oh, there's one more. Oh, Q.
Whoa.
He's way over there. He's way over there in the corner.
This is going to be a tough one.
This is going to be a tough one. He doesn't ask us simple questions.
So, if I have an offer from like 360 or Tencent for an exclusive title, would you give it to them exclusively, or would you non-exclusively distribute through all the channels available?
Of course, we will tell you no.
Yes. Of course, no. From our standpoint, no.
Well, depending on what kind of deal you get, right? For sure. I mean, you should. I mean, for all the developer, I would encourage you to try to talk to Tencent, talk to Wechat, talk to 360, and get an offer, get a deal, and try to talk to us. And you can compare an orange to apple, or see what's the. I mean, typical deal structure would be working with a publisher would be a revenue share based, and on the China market, there is a possibility of getting upfront. It's either MG or licensing fee. And then it's pretty easy to compare. I mean, your upside, and also if you're working with a trustworthy publisher, and you should have a good coverage and also a good financial terms. So yeah, it's case by case, and do compare and do the math.
How much have they offered?
I will have a little bit to add on that. Is, you know, I have been using this analogy for quite some time already. Of course, you know, platform is something that you always need to consider, and for developer to maintain a good relationship with platform is important too. But you know, to me, is You know, a good game is like a hot girl. All right? Platforms are like divorced old men. They always want to be with the hot girls, but they never want to be with one hot girl. All right? So they will never focus in your title as like a publisher does, because we are in to marry you. All right? We're in to build a long-term relationship and have baby with you. All right? So you might be stressful today, or you might have bad mood. We'll pull up with that. You know, we'll really pull up with that and try to maintain the relationship before we go into divorce. But with a married old man, all he wants is bring you out for a nice night, and you know, after a while he'll go like, you know, even if a good relationship, he need to focus on other games. You know, it's in nature. You know, he can't have a platform where all his game is from one developer, or it's always number one is that one game. You know, it also depends on like, so going back to the topic is like, how much resource are you willing to spend? You know, with platform, you know, to them is they're never going to focus on your game as much as a publisher does. You know, even though you're not providing source code to a publisher will constantly tell you what's the problem with your game. They'll give you data of the problem with your game, and they'll probably even give you suggestion on how to change your game. So you have a much better idea of how to make your game. Or if you provide source code, then developer actually do it for you, then you have much less risk involved. But with a platform, you know, they're a platform. The most they can give you is data and say like, your game is failing on retention. Why? I don't know. It's failing. So fix it in 3 days. Because if you're not fixing it in 3 days, I'm going to start reducing the traffic volume I'm going to give you. So, you know, with GameView, of course, you guys have all the resources. You know, you guys can even build teams in China to do that. But with a lot of indie developers here, you know, then that becomes a problem. But even for bigger developer like, you know, Gameloft or Disney, you know, they work with a publisher like us because we actually provide that extra service, and that extra service actually is meaningful for them for that revenue share that we make.
Okay, that's a very short answer. That was good. So final thing I'm going to ask to go down the panel, I want one prediction for 2014 Chinese market, very short, and one ultimate tip. I'm sure the tips will be very similar. So starting with you, Jeff, one prediction, one tip, 2014.
Chaos.
Chaos. And what's your tip? What would be your advice to a developer, publisher?
One advice. Publish your game in China and try to find a good publisher for it.
Okay, cool.
I would definitely say that one trend will be the manufacturers getting stronger, and same advice, find a good publisher.
Yeah, so market is growing very, very fast, and we are looking for that China is the most important market for us. And if you want a good publisher from China, a partner, contact me. I can contact you with my partner.
He's asleep. Go on.
I think my prediction is that competition will force revenue shares to be more favorable to developers than they have been in the past this year. And my advice would be to find yourself a good partner that you trust. You know, somebody like one of the panelists, etc., because it's dangerous out there by yourself in the woods.
It's dangerous out there.
I think I'd like to predict two trends. One is within China, one particular genre will become a more dominating genre in China. So right now it is RPG, strategy game, and card game, a little bit casual. And in 2014 there will be action RPG. So if you have an action RPG title and do prepare your title, probably would do very well in the Asian market, and talk to one of the publishers here. And the second trend actually is reversely, and I do predict there will be more Chinese games or games developed by Chinese companies, developers, or publishers coming to the Western market. One example right now is IGG's Castle Clash. Expect to see more. So it's a competition coming from the East. So and for Western developers, your offense probably the best defense. I guess that would be my advice.
I like that. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going with you. I think we're going to see more Chinese games coming up to Europe and to US, and they will succeed because some of them have right now good quality. It has been that it's a change thing that happened in last year, and well, I think there is also all the OEMs in China could help developers because they are eager to content and not only for China. We made a deal with ZTA and we end up having the game preloaded in Brazil, so it's something to look forward also.
Okay. Okay, kind of one last round of applause for my panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.